for Bring Your Own Lunch. Personal stories about the business with my daddy, Dave T. Koenig.
All right, come on in. Have a seat. Welcome. This is the Bring Your Own Lunch podcast at BringYourOwnLunch.com, the magic of iTunes, the majesty of Stitcher, and however you found your way to download this podcast, I thank you. As you heard at the top, my name is Dave T. Koenig. I'm an actor, writer, director, producer, comedian, all-around swell dude. I have a love-hate relationship with my dog today. And of course, I'm the host of the podcast you're listening to right now. BYOL is the hashtag you can use if you want to hop on social media and get involved. Like us on Facebook.com/BringYourOwnLunch. Follow us on Twitter at BYOL Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Bring Your Own Lunch. We have a bunch of other outlets out there that you can glom onto, but if you get lost, there's always the home base, the mothership, if you will, BringYourOwnLunch.com. You can find out all the information about the guests on this program, past, present, and presumably future. And you can always reach out and send me a personal email, dave@bringyourownlunch.com. I read every email that comes in. What I do with it, you never know. But you send me a personal email, especially if you have a question about the business or anything that I might have some insight on. Because honestly, this podcast was built in the idea of providing information to people who are either just getting started or are relatively new to the business, or even people who are on the periphery of the business who haven't quite decided to jump on in and have no idea how to get started. Well, my hope was that I would be able to interview people I know in the business and give them an opportunity to share what they've learned throughout their career, and hopefully somebody out there is going to be able to listen to that, take a mental note, and further their career, or heck, even begin their career based on what they've heard here. And a great guy to listen to for something like that is my guest this week, Matt Lawler. Matt Lawler and I have known each other for several years. The exact number, I can't even remember, but it goes back to that project that I've talked about endlessly, Filmic Achievement. He is one of the leads in that film that we did. I think it was back in 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. But Matt, brilliantly funny, brilliantly talented actor, and he has forged himself a really awesome career over the years in theater, in TV, in film, and in commercials. He's one of those guys who I'm sure you've seen. You may not have necessarily known his name, but he's all over the place at all times. And he's somebody who I think somebody can learn a ton from. He is a graduate of the MFA program at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. He is one of the co-founders of the Rube Mechanicals Theater Company, the award-winning theater company in New York City. And for the last 5 years, he has been the associate artistic director of Mile Square Theater in Hoboken there in New Jersey, where they are doing some fantastic work. So he's a guy who's always busy in the business, but he's also busy doing his own thing, creating his own works, experiencing things on I guess that you call that the granular level, and somebody who is an inspiration to me and to other people who really need a reminder that this isn't just a business of sitting around and waiting for the phone to ring, but if you get yourself out there, if you fulfill yourself creatively, when the phone does ring, you're in far better position to take advantage of whatever opportunities come your way. If you are keeping your feet moving, if you are getting involved in things, if you are self-promoting, self-producing, self-motivating, and Matt's that kind of guy, and I think the conversation I have with him definitely loaded with all kinds of good stuff about how to really get somewhere in the business, because it's not an easy business, and that's part of what he and I do talk about. You may or may not be aware that the general feeling among many actors is one of uncertainty. It's hard to say, but it is an honest truth that it's harder to make a living now as an actor than it has been in a very, very long time. For some, they're doing great, so I know nobody's going to cry poverty for people who are actors. I mean, it seems like our jobs are the coolest thing in the world, and I'm not going to lie to you. The actual work we do is the coolest thing ever. But to make a living as an actor, well, that's starting to become a real challenge for a lot of people. And there are a lot of reasons for it. One of them, which is technology. Technology has changed things on such a rapid level that even the most prescient of person couldn't necessarily tell that there was going to be such a rapid change in the environment. I mean, think about things 15 years ago, even 20 years ago. There were the networks, and they were the king, and you had like 4 or 5 channels that went over the air, and those are the ones that most people watched. on a regular basis, and there were cable channels, and that was very good. But there were a relatively few number of them as compared to now, and there certainly wasn't anything like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime where you can instantly, on demand, watch pretty much anything you want to watch. And that technology has limited the effectiveness and the number of commercials that people are watching anymore. So people like me and Matt, who have made a lot of money in our careers doing commercials, have seen those opportunities become less frequent. Even within that, the structure of how we're paid is highly dependent on where a commercial is aired. Let's say I book a commercial for a national brand. If they were to play that on the networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, I would be paid at a certain rate. And because it's network and over the air and it's free TV, it's the highest rate possible. Now, that same advertiser may choose to air it on cable only. And regardless of how many eyeballs actually watch that particular commercial, whether it's on network or cable, I will be paid less if it only airs on cable. It's a bit of a relic for an old system that still needs to be resolved because, honestly, you look at The Walking Dead and how many people watch that show, I will get paid a fraction of what I'll get paid on the lowest rated network show on television. So that thing needs to be worked out. But the other thing that has happened is the rise in prominence of non-union work. See, I belong to a union, and that union is SAG-AFTRA, the recently merged Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA, and they govern the work that I do as an actor in television and film and commercials. They are responsible for setting the rates, for negotiating certain guarantees and safety whenever I do a job. And as a member of that union, I'm extraordinarily proud to be there. It does represent that I sit among the best in the world at what we do. I may not be as good, and I'm certainly not as famous as some of the other members of SAG-AFTRA, but I'm at the table, and I'm happy to be there, and I'm super glad, and I would never go back on that. On the other hand, not everybody gets to be in SAG-AFTRA, and not everybody gets paid what SAG-AFTRA members will get for their work. And it certainly is a cost saver for an advertiser to buy a commercial that features non-union actors. Is the quality as good? No. Is the drawing power of anybody in those non-union commercials as good? No. In order to get the best people in the business to be in your commercials, you do have to hire from the best pool of talent. And the best pool of talent is, without a doubt, the membership of SAG-AFTRA. But because of various changes in the industry over the past 10, 15 years, they are not necessarily as encouraged to hire union talent. Unfortunately, the people who are working those non-union jobs, and I don't begrudge them at all because they are trying to make a living, the fact is they can't make a living doing the jobs that we do. A non-union actor booking a non-union job, doing essentially the same work I would do, let's be honest, is going to be paid about 10 cents on the dollar as compared to what I would be paid for a very similar job. And there is the problem. You have fewer commercials being made. You have more commercials being made without SAG-AFTRA members. And you add in the fact that the union jobs are not always paying as well as they used to because they're airing cable only or they're airing on the internet. Well, that's a problem. That's a problem for people like me. And it's a problem for someone like Matt. Right now, SAG-AFTRA is in the midst of an initiative to encourage more union work so that more union members can have opportunities at good union jobs. I'm for that, principally speaking, but but I think it bears a lot of further talk. And I'm not going to bog this particular episode down, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a primer before I get into the conversation with Matt, because we do get into that sort of issue. And I don't want you to sit there and go, what the heck are they talking about? And again, I'm not asking for someone to hold a telethon for me or the members of the union. I think it's something for us to work out and for, hopefully, everyone to prosper. But it definitely will come into play during the course of this conversation. So consider yourselves on the inside. That's what we're dealing with. And that's what I'm hoping will resolve as we move forward. Before we do move forward with Matt, we got to thank our good friends Banuba. Banuba.net, Banooba. That's the band that provides the music at the beginning, middle, and end of the show. They're awesome. They add so much to the show. And my hope is you'll go to their website, you will find out where they'll be playing live, you will buy some of their music, you'll download some of their music, and you'll become part of the Banuba experience as much as Banuba has become part of the Bring Your Own Lunch experience. And it's the best thing I can ask you to do. Actually, the other thing I can ask you to do is, if you have a moment, go to iTunes or Stitcher and rate, review, and subscribe to this show. You'll be doing us a tremendous favor because it helps spread the word. And us here, without a huge marketing war chest, we don't have a lot of money to pay to get the word out, so we're relying on you. And I know it's a lot to ask, but it'd be awesome if you would go to iTunes or Stitcher, rate, review, subscribe to this show, and then if you can, just tell a friend or 2 or 3 or 5,000 to listen to the show as well. If you like it, if you don't like it, I'm curious why you've gotten this far. All right, let's get into it with Matt Lawler. Awesome actor, great director, hilarious guy. Hagfish? We will talk about it. Here's Matt. Enjoy. Did softball start?
Yeah, we're on game 3. We're undefeated.
You're undefeated?
Yeah. Pretty exciting.
And this is the Hagfish.
This is the Hagfish, yes. I think it's my 12th year, I believe.
Your 12th year with the Hagfish?
Yeah.
Did they sign you out of college? Is that the...
Yeah, they were recruiting me back in the early college days. That was my understanding. No, a good friend of mine, Damon Sperber, who I went to grad school with, he recruited me, and I'm the senior member now on the team.
You have outlasted the founder himself?
I have, yeah. He's been in San Francisco the last few years.
Oh, okay.
He hasn't picked up a glove in about 3 years.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah, but
we were very excited to have you. You had a couple cups of coffee with the Hagfish.
I did, and I think I wanted to jump in mainly because the name of the team was the Hagfish. Where did that name come from?
This was a Craigslist team. And it was basically a Hagfish. I believe his name is Michael Press, who came up with the idea for the Hagfish, which are basically like these leeches. Those are sort of like the low fish on the whole sort of
like way low,
way low. Yeah, and we kind of had that. It kind of fit us because 5 minutes before the game, we were scrambling for players. I mean, we take kids just off the playground or guys walking on the sidewalk. They're like, hey, can you spare an hour to play with us? So
hence my joining the team for that short period.
Well, we had big plans for you there, my friend.
Yeah.
We were grooming you for first base there.
Oh, see, I should have stuck around.
You had the lefty power bat, which is a rare thing in the
It's
softball
hard to believe, but not that many guys hit lefty in softball. It is kind of strange.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
But maybe lefties, their bodies give out earlier. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, there were a couple of fields that favored the lefty power hitters.
Yeah.
So,
well, maybe someday I'll strap the glove back on and my quads will blow out again. But the idea of that is for you to balance your life. Because you've been at this acting game for a long time. A very long time. A very long time. No, you've been you've been living the actor's life, right? For how long would you say you have been?
I got out of ACT in 1996, and I guess I've made a living at it since '98,
which is an impressive feat at any rate.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. I mean, you went to What's that?
Yeah, I like the way that I'm just replaying the way that you said long. I've been at it a long time.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, when I say that, I mean, it's out of respect and admiration, and I understand how difficult that is to stay with it, and not just stay with it, but have a career and have an income and have a livelihood because of acting. And nowadays it's even harder than it ever was, but
it is, yeah.
But it is never easy starting out either. Right. So
right.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. You originally, as far as I know, you were from Massachusetts, but tell me about that.
Right. Yeah, I moved to Massachusetts when I was about 8 from Cleveland, and we lived in the city for a little bit and then outside. And then I went to Holy Cross in Worcester for college, and I didn't study acting. I was an English major, and I taught for 3 years, actually. After Holy Cross, I went to, I had to walk all the way up the stairs.
I know, it's rough.
Winded.
Yeah, no.
Winded.
You get to be, once you've been in this business a long time, walking up the stairs tends to be a challenge.
Indeed. Lots of challenges.
So this is interesting to me because I did not realize that you had aspirations other than acting. I for some reason I assumed you kind of like sprung from the womb ready to act.
Well, there are accounts that may have been the case, and even some footage to support that thought.
But, were you like that as a kid? I mean,
yeah, I was a bit of a ham. Needed a lot of attention. I'm one of 7, so I was the 5th of 7. So, there was a lot of competition there.
Jockeying for position.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Did your parents and I'm not sure of your family dynamic growing up, but was it an effort? Were you ever did you ever see one of the 7 get a little more attention than the other, or was it just your own perception of it?
Yeah, I mean, we had some pretty strong-willed personalities, still do, strong-willed personalities among the 7. Yeah, I would say, the oldest and the youngest seem to kind of get the lion's share of attention. I love them. I love my siblings. They're all amazing people. But that was kind of how it went down. But no, our parents were, just my dad passed away about 4 years ago. But my mom is still with us, and they did a great job. I had a really fortunate upbringing. So nothing for the couch on that one.
Yeah,
really.
What brought you from Cleveland to Boston, or just outside Boston?
My dad had just a lot of balls. I mean, he really did. Like, here he is. He's got 7 kids.
Yeah.
And he's selling coal for a coal company. He's a salesman, and he's on the road a lot. He's in West Virginia and this and that. And he was a smart guy. Always had like a very good head for numbers, but at that age, with 7 kids, he's like, you know what? I think my future is in the stock market, to be a stockbroker. So he took basically like an entry-level position in Massachusetts at this brokerage firm.
Wow.
And just, his instincts were on the money. Like he just had a good feel for it, and it just suited his skill set, and it kind of grew from there, where he went from one place to the next and ended up branching out on his own and sort of doing some sort of venture capital stuff towards the end of his career. But
so he struck while the iron was hot. It sounds like just before the 80s is when he decided to do that. When
this was in the 70s. Yeah,
when you moved.
That's right. I guess it was in the 70s when he took that position, kind of late 70s.
Yeah, so it was just before, I guess, Reaganomics kicked in,
right,
when a lot of people got very, very rich.
Right.
So he didn't just catch it when the wave was starting to crest. He caught it when it was still out at sea there.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
He did. He was a pretty prescient fella.
Wow. And, I wish I had that kind of forethought.
Yeah, I know. And that kind of guts, Yeah. And, no, it's true. He just, he really had great instincts with companies and people, and, man of very, few words, but tough disciplinarian, but just a big heart and great sense of humor. Great guy.
Sounds cool.
Yeah,
Sounds cool.
He was very cool.
What's interesting to me when you say that, and I hadn't necessarily connected this about us before. He started as a salesman. Then essentially when you get into stock brokerage, you were all sort of doing sales, but that sort of stuff,
right?
Where you may have he may have had a salary from any one of those jobs, but the money would come and ebb and flow and stuff like that. Yeah. My dad owned his own company and still does.
Wow.
And for 30 years. Yeah. And I was actually just talking about this with somebody else where the norm wasn't, steady paycheck. It was ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And my dad never really revealed the specifics of the ups and downs to us. So everything was very consistent as far as my dad went. Yeah. But through osmosis, we had to have at least caught on that there was some stress and then there was some relief and stress and relief and stress and relief. And I think for me as an actor, that has set me up brilliantly to handle the ups and downs of this business. Do you think that maybe that happened for you too?
Well, that's interesting. I guess I was just such in my own world at the time and just so full of, my own thoughts and who I am that, I didn't, to the extent of, and it's true, like the swings in that business. And I do remember at one point, my dad saying that, we're going to need to go on food stamps, and that was, we never did, but there was some serious talk about that.
Yeah.
And and sure, the market is obviously quite, quite fickle. But he lived with so much uncertainty, but he did feel like he mastered energy stocks was sort of like that was his sector. Yeah. So he felt like with the stuff that he could control, the information that he could acquire and master in a way, he was just always grinding away, and it's kind of it is true in a way of like we have to work on our craft and our thing, but who knows if other people are interested, if there is a need.
Yeah. I do compare it to people who just have a steady job with a steady paycheck, and talking to people who hear what we do, they're like, I can't believe you can deal with the ups and downs of it. But I think to some degree it has to be in your DNA. So I guess part of it is trying to figure out what got you comfortable with this as a career and got you into it. So
it's a great question. Because none of my other siblings, nobody else in my business, in my family's in the business, and it's certainly a struggle for me too. I mean, the unpredictability of it all.
Yeah.
But yes, there was this other part of me that kind of likes the unknown. Like, I don't know what's coming next tomorrow,
It almost has to be that way for me. And I'm wondering if that's a common thread that we don't necessarily think about among actors, but there's sort of a gambler's nature to what we do.
Right. Yeah, and actually, it's true. Like my dad, there was that element of this unpredictability, but he was also very conservative in other aspects of his life, and certainly conservative as an investor. But yeah, he picked a very volatile, field to carve out a living, and certainly someone who came to it late and didn't have like the social capital. He didn't know a lot of people that he could kind of work with there. So, there's definitely, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating to me, the psychology of what we do, because what we do is so loaded with psychology.
Yeah.
But even just to the extent of picking this as a career. Now, getting you had mentioned. Go ahead.
It made me just think of something that might be interesting to your listeners too, because I got out of ACT, and you have this sort of expectation of, okay, in a year I'm going to be, I'm going to have 2 big guest star roles or, a supporting role in a big movie. And then, in 3 years, I'm going to, book a pilot, and then I'll be a series regular in 5 years. And,
right.
And you have that plan for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of drove me crazy for my first 2 years. But the first job that I got out of ACT was a Broadway show, right?
Which is pretty phenomenal.
Which was pretty phenomenal. And this was a show with all these big stars: Billy Crudup, Eric Stoltz, Lily Taylor, Jeannie Triplehorn, Jerry Stiller, all these people. Paul Giamatti. I understudied Paul. I was in it, and I understudied Paul Giamatti.
What was the show?
Three Sisters at the Roundabout, and then so you think, all right, here it is.
Yeah.
This is just going to launch me, and then it didn't go there.
Yeah,
and then I remember reading this article with John Malkovich, and he was just like, just kind of describing his mindset, and that he just didn't know what was happening tomorrow. Like, he just didn't have any kind of plan at all.
Yeah.
And I think that, maybe that doesn't quite work for me, having no plan.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, because there's another extreme, like John Malkovich.
Right.
And, obviously it led to things like Steppenwolf Theater, where they just dug in, and they may have been starving for 3 weeks, but they were making phenomenal art.
Right.
But he had zero idea where it was going to go once each individual play closed, let's say.
Yeah.
And it obviously worked out for him and a lot of the people who went through Steppenwolf. But for us, we're thinking about that but how are you going to feed your kids? That kind of pressures play into things.
Right. And I think, after Lily was born, my oldest, who's 8 now, I did kind of drill down on the commercial stuff. I couldn't go out of town for theater, and I couldn't even really do theater. And I had started a theater company, and that I sort of let that drop, and it had run, we'd been around for even 8 or 10 years at that point. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of just focus on being a dad and my commercial career, and try to get more voiceover stuff happening. And I kind of regretted that singular focus in a way.
Yeah.
That I kind of felt like it, before, when I was doing theater and I was sort of creating my own work, and I was meeting a lot more people. I was just more engaged as an artist. And as a person. And as a person too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of silly to think that, yes, you have to pay attention to your commercial career. You have to.
Yeah.
That's where generally, the majority of my monies come from.
Sure.
But, it's so, I talk about unpredictable. I mean,
And I want to get into this part of your career, but let's get to here for a second, because your choices along the way are very interesting to me, and I think we can get into a lot of subjects about what it's like now. But I'm curious, what took you from being a teacher out of Holy Cross? What flipped the switch where you're like, okay, maybe I should try acting?
Well, I was teaching. I taught for 3 years in the New York City public school system here, and they had this sort of temporary licenses that they were offering.
Now, how did you end up in New York after where you were?
I knew I wanted to teach after undergrad, but I didn't really want to. A lot of my friends who got into teaching were teaching at private schools, and they were coaches and teachers, and a lot of times they're living in the dorms with the students there, and I didn't want that. And that was sort of a little bit of the experience that I had actually as a student. I went to a private school, all boys private school, for high school, and then all of a sudden I found out about the New York City school system is hiring, and I was like, oh, now that's frightening,
Yeah.
And so I'd been to New York a number of times. My grandparents were here. My dad grew up here, so I already knew that I really enjoyed and loved New York City. So I jumped at that opportunity, and I was a substitute teacher for about 3-4 months, and I kept going back to this one school, and actually, I got to be friendly with the principal because we used to see each other at church. She was a former nun.
Wow.
And then she gave me a full-time position. So I was there for 3 years up in East Harlem and teaching junior high school. And yet I always sort of had this thing in the back of my head, like, acting. You really, you love it. You wanted to try it. I mean, the opportunity didn't really present itself to me at Holy Cross. I was, I played baseball and, I didn't really know anybody in the theater department.
Right.
And the people that I did sort of know, I was like, I don't really want to spend time with them.
They were theater people. Yeah,
exactly.
They weren't actors. They were theater people.
But I was just, so full of myself.
Sure.
And maybe just scared,
Yeah.
And so... And it didn't, I never tried it. So then my first class was at the Strasberg Institute here in New York. I just took this class and I just kind of found that it really worked for me. I really enjoyed it and I liked the teachers there. And then actually I moved back to Boston after that. My mom wasn't feeling too well and I kind of had been, 3 years. I only expected to teach 1 year, and it was 3 years, and I was sort of ready to move on. So I moved back to Boston, and then I got into an acting class there, and did some work in Boston. And one of my teachers said, "Hey, if you're really serious about acting, you should consider graduate schools." So then I applied to graduate schools and went to ACT.
Now, for somebody who might maybe have heard of those letters but doesn't really know much about it, what is ACT?
American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. She was actually this teacher taught at Berkeley, and so she knew the Berkeley University and from the Bay Area, and she knew about the program and who knows, maybe she dropped called in a favor or something to get me in there. But,
it is a very prestigious and extremely well-known program, and it's churned out a ton of very, very good actors.
Yeah.
What would you say is the sort of overriding, what's it called, the philosophy of that place?
It's a little more, it's kind of a Meisner-based, so I think the actor is all about being relaxed, being present, being... talking and listening really and allowing the moment to go where it's going to go. And but we also had great technical teachers there, great voice teacher, great speech teacher, wonderful Alexander teacher, and good acting teachers as well. It's kind of interesting. When I was there, they were sort of in transition. The first year we had basically one lead teacher and head of the department, and then he was a dance teacher, and usually the head of the department is is the principal acting teacher.
That is interesting,
yeah. So we had basically all these like master classes with these people that were coming in, basically applying for the job, auditioning for the job.
Yeah.
So we'd have all the, it was a whole kind of smorgasbord of lessons that we were getting from these different instructors, and then but by the time my second year came around, it was a little more streamlined, and now the program is a 3-year program.
And at the time,
it was just 2 years.
2 years,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you were there, I know from having worked with a few of them, but you were there with a bunch of really good people.
Yeah. There. I mean, a lot of people that have gone on to big careers. Like, Derek Cecil's a good pal of mine. We started a theater company. Derek's a series regular on House of Cards, and then there's a lot of people. Chris Fitzgerald, he does a lot of Broadway stuff. He's just booked a TV series, and then Anna Rose, I'm blanking on her name. She was in Dreamgirls.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And just lots of other people like, Elizabeth Banks was there 2 years after me, and Anna Belknap and Eric Siegel, just tons of, there's a long list. Omar Metwali.
So really you can definitely say that place would be a recommended destination for somebody, for sure. Yeah.
And you never know what kind of class you're going to get.
Sure.
But I had obviously, the class ahead of you, the class behind you. And after I graduated, I started this theater company, and we, hired a lot of ACT people.
Yeah. Was that here? That was in New York?
That was in New York.
Yeah. Okay. You came back to New York right after that.
Yeah. Rude Mechanicals had helped a lot with the casting of
Filmic Achievement, which we will get into because the history of this podcast certainly reveals my obsession with that time of my life and that project, because it certainly is. It was definitely a highlight for me.
Such a blast.
And getting to work with so many awesome people, and I do want to talk a little bit about that from your perspective, because you had a little bit more insight than the rest of us who were just cast in the thing. Yeah, because you were helping. I remember you being in the room for the audition. But what was the process for you getting to New York after?
Yeah, so getting to New York, but just to wrap it up about ACT, I just felt like a lot of the people there were just really just great people, and people that you just want to be friends with, and a lot of people are not in the business anymore, whatever. But there was just not a lot of head cases there. I think that had a little something to do with, typically the person that goes to ACT might be a little older than some of the other programs so that's my plug. Good
that's your plug
on ACT. But then, so we did a showcase, and we did it in New York, and we did it in Los Angeles. And I really liked these agents that, and so, a handful of people wanted to have a conversation with me afterwards.
How was the turnout? I'm sure it was pretty big for because it was ACT, but
it was okay. I think it's a lot better now.
Interesting.
Than it was then. I would say, there were a lot of casting directors, a lot of commercial people. There weren't a lot of theatrical agents. And then, at that time, there were not many managers,
right.
back then.
Which is a whole different
animal now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I was with Henderson Hogan. I'm still around. I'm no longer with them, but these two guys that from Henderson Hogan came, and they were really responsive to me, and then I started freelance. So I signed with them, and then as far as commercial stuff goes, there were a number of agents that wanted to work with me, nobody who wanted to sign me. So I started out freelancing with a bunch of them, and then I booked a commercial pretty soon, and then they're all like, let's sign, sign you.
And I don't even know if that's how things are now, but I know even when I broke in, which was after the strike,
right?
That's how it sort of was, where I was able to sort of, work with a bunch of them, and then as soon as I started getting a little traction, it was like, well, let's sign you. It was, but before that, it was like, we'll see what happens. Yeah. So,
which is, I thought, I was happy about that.
Yeah, too. It was great for me. I felt like I had some modicum of control over things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get a sense of how they see you, for the kinds of things that they're sending you in on. And and I think, it's less of like this, just less traumatic if you part ways,
because there was no formal relationship that way.
You're kind of dabbling to see if they kind of get you, and they might be following up with casting directors to see how you're doing,
and they're dabbling with you, and that's totally cool too. It's sort of like a speed dating almost in a way. It's like we're just doing a little bit of here, a little bit there,
right?
And if we like it, we'll take it further. But if not, no biggie. It's just a speed date.
Yeah.
Totally. Did you ever have a thought after ACT of going to LA, or was it always New York?
I did. So we I had kind of a similar experience there, where I met with a fair amount of agents and some casting directors after our showcase there. And you get out of this theater program, and you're spending most of your time learning how to hold yourself and breathe and Shakespeare and movement and all this stuff that's training for the stage. And I, because I sort of got into it late, I was just sort of like kind of playing catch up too, just on, Shakespeare and Chekhov and just all these great playwrights and the richness of, all these great parts and all that kind of stuff. And so the idea of, just working on a professional stage was really exciting.
Sure. Especially the level you started out as. Yeah. Because, to be honest, the rank and file among us, and myself included, you're working in church basements and you're working, there's a falling apart stage in Times Square.
Right.
And the people you're working with are of varied levels, but certainly not on the level you were working at. When you ended that run with that show, first of all, did you get any attention from agents then? Were you already working with Henderson Hogan?
I was already working with Henderson
Hogan. So you were already in place. Yeah. So I was... obviously, you had further to fall after your first experience. So, what was that? What happened after you ended that run in that show? It almost accelerated my plans. Like, okay, it's not going to be 5 years; it's going to be 1 year before I, get my. Obviously, if I was hanging around with Paul Giamatti, this is a matter of time before big producers come calling.
And and he really is a delightful guy. And when I started my theater company, he was actually on the advisory board, and
that's great.
Just a sweetheart of a guy. But you're in a show with all these people, and you kind of think they're your peers, and they are, because you're all in it together.
We're all human beings, sure.
But that's I wasn't going to step into the Truman Show, the way that he did. So I guess I was a little, I was certainly a little frustrated that it wasn't some kind of launching thing. Well, first of all, the play did not really get very good reviews, and it's a hard play. There's 2 intermissions.
Oh, wow.
But it was a terrific experience, and I did think that it would lead to, bigger gigs, but really it led to some really good relationships that I still maintain. But
what would you say was the biggest thing education-wise you took from that experience? Seeing all those, really well-established actors doing their thing. Was there anything that you picked up on that you're like, I'm definitely stealing that for my career?
You really... I just appreciated the generosity of some of the people that were in it. Like David Strathairn, just a great guy and great actor. And I remember... he would, go out of his way to help me with auditions, or actually another friend of mine who was in the show, who was another understudy. He was trying to get into the actor's studio, and David used to come in early, and he would help us with because you have to perform this scene in order to have them accept you or not, and he directed it for us and just kind of worked on it. So, I just. So I appreciated that kind of behavior, but what did I get out of that experience?
Well, that's a pretty good one, actually.
It was a good one. There are just a lot of sort of different kinds of personalities and different ways of working. So it was fascinating sitting in and rehearsal and seeing, this one, I don't know if I should name names, but
give us, the act is probably good enough.
Here's a good, Callista Flockhart. She was Natasha in that, and it was so fun to see her come into rehearsal, trying different things each time, and really building her performance. But she arrived at sort of where she thought it needed to be, it didn't really change much during the course of the run. Billy Crudup was sort of the most exciting person for me to watch, because he had this tiny role of Solioni, and yet he won a drama desk for it. And stuff that would be working for him, that would be killing for him, he would just let it go and do something different.
Interesting.
Just constantly pushing himself and reimagining the character and just wanting it to be as alive as possible for him. So
that is the toughest part about doing theater on that level, especially like 8 shows a week, is finding newness for yourself as much as anybody else. So I tend to think like his methods sound far more exciting.
Yeah.
And it would be far more challenging to have to be doing the same exact thing each and every syllable the way Calista Flockhart might be doing, but it works for her.
Exactly. It worked for her. She still feel anyone that would see the play, and she certainly was very present on stage, and there just wasn't, she created her character and went through her process and kind of arrived at a place where she was that she was happy with, and that was that. But yeah, it's always interesting to watch how different people kind of try to get to that place of of aliveness.
Yeah. What year was that?
That boy.
That
was 97.
97. Okay.
Yeah.
So from there, how long before you felt like you had gotten off the schneid, so to speak? Because you obviously indicated that it didn't launch you to superstardom. So how long did it take to get over that sort of feeling of, oh man, like, was that my one shot?
Well, it's interesting. Paul Giamatti left the show early to do the Truman Show, and I remember hearing, you're in your dressing room, and the stage manager says, "Matthew, can you come to the office?" and so I come in there, and Scott Elliott, the director's there, and the stage manager says, "Paul Giamatti's leaving the show," And I think, there's three weeks left of the show. And I could, so I'm thinking, here it is. I have 3 weeks to play Andre, one of the best, I think that Three Sisters is, I think not a lot of people would argue with me, one of the best plays ever written.
I heard that Chekhov guy's pretty good. Yeah.
You're right. And here's an opportunity that I think that I'll have to play Andre, not even a year out of school.
Yeah.
For 3 weeks with these amazing actors. But in the next breath, they said, and we are going to hire Mark Nelson because we can't find somebody to do what you do. Because I was understudying. I was on stage as a soldier, but I was also understudying, oh my gosh, I feel another character. Oh my gosh.
So, well, at least the justification.
David Marshall Grant, who is,
okay.
Yeah, he played, oh my gosh, I can't even remember.
But the idea being that it's harder to find somebody who can learn all those parts and be kind of stuck on a day when one of them gets sick than it is to plug somebody else into that one role.
Exactly. But so that was really the painful thing.
Yeah,
was like, not thinking that I had a shot at, 3 weeks of just doing this role.
Yeah.
And I remember Paul even saying, "Oh man, they should give it to you. Come on," because I'd rehearse and do it in understudy rehearsals and I don't know. Who knows? It would have been a lot of fun. But to get back to your question, I get frustrated, Dave, after that experience. And then I remember I did like this TV thing on New York Undercover. Oh,
hey,
boy. Now we're dating ourselves.
Yeah, really?
And then...
that was shot on VHS, I think.
Exactly. Oh, man. So I... what was I going to say? Yeah, so the next year, like, I didn't really go in on much stuff.
Yeah.
So I basically spent a year not... waiting by the phone and not really having a lot of other stuff going on and thinking that I should be going out for all this major stuff. And to compound those feelings, I was living with a bunch of Juilliard graduates.
Oh, wow.
Who were with Gersh. One was with,
oh, boy.
not Paradigm, but Endeavor, I think, had just started.
Sure.
So they were with, all these big shot agents, and they were going in on everything, and I'm helping them with their, auditions and this and that. So I fired my agent. I was like, I'm going to leave, And this is, fortunately, about this time, is when I kind of read the John Malkovich thing about, just no plan, just take it easy, whatever. Sure. So then I started myself, Derek Cecil, Ryan Roulette, and a couple other ACT people. We started the Rude Mechanicals Theater Company. And I put a lot of energy into that. And that was truly my primary focus for what was probably like the next 6 or 7 years. And like I was making a lot of money doing commercials and then I was, working on this theater company and sort of building this theater company. And I was, super proud of it. We, New York Magazine called us like the hottest young company back in 2000. We did like a world premiere of a Charles Mee play, a New York premiere of a Carol Churchill play. We did Will Eno's first play.
Wow.
And probably our biggest show was Valparaiso, the Don DeLillo play that was done in Chicago, and we even made it into Page Six. I mean, Salman Rushdie came to see the show.
Oh wow!
And it was really exciting. We had just a lot of great people, a lot of great actors that were part of this company. We were doing just this really interesting work, and I was super proud of the product. But
so you were fulfilled, and at the same time, you had some income.
Yeah,
and it's almost like that's nirvana for actors. To feel artistically fulfilled, and also to actually be able to eat.
Totally. It was very satisfying. I mean, of course, starting a theater company brought its own sort of set of worries and
of course.
So we were just trying to cobble together a board and just to raise money and all that kind of stuff, and then unfortunately the company just kind of fell apart because a lot of people moved to Los Angeles, and we never really got that angel to sort of come in and write us a big check and kind of help us build that infrastructure. But it was a major part of my life.
Yeah, and even at 6 or 7 years, compared to the vast majority of theater companies that start up, especially in New York, they're lucky if they last more than one show.
Yeah.
So 6 or 7 years doing good work is a major accomplishment in New York.
Yeah, I mean, those were 6 or 7 very busy years, but honestly, I mean, our first show was 99, and then our last show was 2010 at 59 East 59th Street.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah, even the last 3-4 years that we were around, we probably did like 3 shows. They weren't as sort of high profile stuff, but yeah, we had a good run.
Yeah,
we totally did.
In today's, I mean, it's so hard now. I mean, we talked like you can say that about just about everything in the business. It's so hard now. But the idea of having live, vibrant, new theater is really hard to do.
Right.
Especially just a collection of actors, like we were talking about Steppenwolf.
Right.
It's hard to imagine accomplishing that Steppenwolf thing, and I think partly it's because it's harder to make a living as an actor.
Right.
You talked about your commercial work, and that at least allowed you to focus on something without having to get a 9-to-5 job and stuff like that. And you have been gainfully employed by the business since the late 90s. Do you think it's possible to happen anyway? Do you think there is still the possibility that some people coming out of ACT or another great program could come to New York and start a theater program the way you did and have it last for as long as it does?
Well, they would need some help, obviously. Yeah. I mean, and we did certainly get help along the way. We had our sort of go-to list of supporters, and we had some great, fundraisers. But Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. I think, you do a couple of good shows and word gets around. Word gets around really fast. I mean, I think it was after like our third show, we did this Václav Havel play in this Greenwich Street Theater, which was like, 90 seats or something, and it was a showcase run. Well, we had like major agents sending their clients, like, these are William Morris and Gersh. They found out about us, and they're sending their clients work to us. Because I think we also did have a real clear mission and an aesthetic. It was very sort of muscular, poetic kind of language, and we generally, would find like a well-known writer, or maybe not sort of a household name, but kind of focus on one of their like neglected works, like Don DeLillo's Valparaiso. When it was in Chicago, I mean, it sort of got terrible reviews, and he's known more as a novelist, and but. It was a great fit for us. I mean, all these other, like this Charles Mee, everybody loves Charles Mee, but nobody wanted to do that play of his. But we'll do it, and even the Largo Desolado, the Václav Havel play. It's sort of this weird play, and our interest was, making these really great poetic, dense language plays as accessible and fun as we could, and I think we sort of accomplished that. And a lot of actors were excited by the kind of work we were doing. So there was a lot of enthusiasm. But in terms of the sacrifice, I was definitely lucky. Like, I had my auditions and callbacks and stuff like that. But most of the rest of the company, they were, had their day jobs, or temping or, grinding away. And I mean, it was really sweet. Like a few of our actors were at the a big publishing house, Doubleday or something, and like their bosses were such big fans of the company as well. So we used to get all their kind of free stuff, and they used to support us, and and then actually the guy who was really the driving force of the theater company is this guy Ryan Roulette. And he would, he was a workaholic. I mean, he worked, 45, 50 hours in his job, and he probably worked another 40 hours. I'm not kidding, on the rude mechanical stuff.
Wow.
Well, people started to notice, and he ended up getting a job at the Marin Theater Company as a co-artistic director, and now he's the artistic director of a Lortby theater in just outside of DC, and so you need somebody like that too.
Yeah.
And he was a guy that he got out of ACT with a acting degree like everybody, but he was a producer. He didn't really act in much of this stuff. He directed a couple of things, but honestly, the lion's share of his work was as a producer.
Interesting. And you need people like that too. Yeah. That's the other challenge I always find. And when I know somebody who is a really good producer, I think they're just worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
Because I get this feeling like, we all want to be in front of the camera. We all want to be on stage, but it's not necessarily true.
Right.
It's just finding the people who are as passionate as you are about performing. Someone who is as passionate about producing that thing, or directing that thing, or any of the parts that go into it, as you are about performing it, is a hard challenge. I mean, how did you obviously had somebody in-house who was able to do that.
But we all had to learn that stuff. I mean, it was all about making theater. We're all doing this. Yeah. We're not just actors, We all have to help raise money and just sort of like get the thing up.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of having a theater company as opposed to just, you have an idea for something and you want to get it produced, and therefore you're the one who's spearheading all of it.
Right.
And I find myself sometimes in that trap of thinking like, I'm either going to have to do this all by myself or I can't do it. And it's a terrible way to look at it, I realize. But there's that part of me that's like, well, I don't want to be selfish and make somebody else be a producer. But then again, there are people who want to be a producer. So
right.
I don't know.
Right.
We play head games with ourselves.
I mean, I think it's a good skill set to have, especially just as an artist. Just dealing with. I mean, I remember I was running the box office and doing the marketing for a show that I wasn't in, and we actually had like a publicist there. So I was like helping write the press release. And then just, running the box office and kind of interacting with the audience and doing all that kind of stuff. And then also, other producer stuff, trying to, get the best deal you can from the person that's renting you the rehearsal space or the theater space or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, that's, I started to kind of enjoy that. And that's, those are obviously transferable skills.
Yeah,
too,
absolutely. No, that is very true, and it makes you more valuable in the industry.
Yeah,
which is something that also I think a lot of people overlook is the idea that if you are able to do those jobs, again, it's valuable. It's really valuable to somebody else who maybe doesn't have that skill or needs to focus on another aspect of it.
Right.
But you also have the ability of knowing that your turn to be on stage to do that part you most want to do was there for you, and that's kind of a nice
Right.
Synergy that goes on there. That's very cool. We were talking a little bit about like what today is and how you approached, when you had it was very interesting to me when you said when your first daughter was born, how you focused on commercial work. And I know I wanted to get back to like what today is for you.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because when my daughter was born, that was my first, I didn't just focus on commercials. I actually focused on doing something outside the business to make sure I can make money.
Oh.
And I found myself, you talked about the singularity of choosing just like the commercial thing. I focused so much on something that I didn't want to do to make money, that I wasn't great at, that I didn't make money, like I didn't make nearly as much money as I do when I focus on acting.
Right.
And so if you know somebody who's about to have a child, what would be the advice you would give to them? Who's in the business, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say just it's easy to kind of, I mean, obviously having a child is so hard, and it truly is. I mean, it's just
if anybody could have seen your expression besides me when you said that, there's so much truth to what you just said.
It's hard, and every kid is a challenge. I mean, our second Matilda, she had colic, and Lily, our oldest, had acid reflux, and of course we didn't really know what to do about it or what it was for such a long period of time, and we're trying different positions. I mean, ultimately we gave her some medicine,
that was it.
And she was fine, but we'd have all these babysitters that would be screaming, it'd be
oh boy,
this has never happened with me with any other child, and and your attention obviously has to be towards making life as easy as you can for your wife and the home, and making sure that works. But it's also, I think, easy for people to then kind of like, oh, okay, he has a kid, so we don't need to think of him. He won't want to do this play.
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel that too.
Oh, he won't want to go out of town, or he won't. He might not be right for this or whatever. Like all of a sudden, you as an artist, like how people perceive you and your interest and availability and just viability, is different. So maybe you even have to work harder and be like, okay, yeah, I'm still an actor.
I think I did on a grander level when you just sort of maybe focused on just the commercial work because it's mostly local. I completely took my eye off the ball. And it felt like I had to start over. Like it was almost like I had left the business entirely, even though I didn't. Right. My foot was still in the door, and I was still taking auditions, and I was still doing what I could. But for a year, I didn't work.
Right.
And it coincided with like the first year of my child's life, which had its good and bad because I wasn't taken away from her, but at the same time, it was like I kind of want to eat.
Right.
So it does have this like weird psychological thing that kind of happens.
Yeah.
But, if I had known then what I know now, it's like, you're right. You probably should just work that much harder at the thing you most want to do.
Right.
Whether it's, commercials or TV or film or any and all of the above.
Right. Right.
It's very interesting you happen to mention that. And since you've been at it for a long I don't want to do that to you again.
Yeah.
Since you've been at it, what do you think is the biggest difference between the career and the industry now compared to how it was when you first broke in? And that could be on a personal level or on just an overall industry level.
I mean, it's really hard to make a living. It feels like it's much harder now, just in terms of all this non-union work that happens.
Yeah.
And it's not like these non-union actors that are getting these jobs are able to support themselves by this work.
No, I mean,
it doesn't, and it's not going to, really help them long term. That's for sure.
Well, the union wants us, and I think it's a good idea. The union wants us to kind of continuously remind other actors that it's a very, very good thing to be part of the union.
Right.
And what you just said is the biggest reason, because when we book a job versus when a non-union person books a job, the return on that job is about, let's say 10 cents on the dollar,
right,
at best.
Right.
So if like someone's making $300, we can make $3,000 or $30,000 if we're really got a whale there.
Right.
Do you see solutions on the horizon?
I'm optimistic. There was a good meeting last week amongst people from Chicago, LA, and New York.
Did you go to that?
Certainly. No, I met with a good pal of mine yesterday who went, and we had a long conversation, and he sort of gave me the rundown.
I did go, and
did you go?
It was interesting because, and we're obviously getting into real nuts and bolts stuff. So if you're listening to this part and you have no idea what we're talking about, I will try to be as descriptive as possible. But SAG-AFTRA, which is the union Matt and I both belong to, that guarantees us certain minimums and safety and that we can have a career doing this stuff, because we, the 99% of the time we do not act. We're doing stuff that doesn't pay anything, like marketing ourselves and stuff like that. So it's very hard to make a living unless the jobs we get pay enough to earn us a living wage. The problem we've encountered in the last several years is that there's a lot of non-union work. That means they're using non-union talent. And as union actors, we don't work non-union jobs. The jobs that you can get as a non-union actor pay 10 cents on the dollar compared to what we make now. Now, the meeting was an initiative to get solutions to this problem. Now, what was your reaction to what your friend had told you about the meeting? I mean, what were some of the things you had heard about? Because, I mean, I was there, so I know what it was like, but what did you hear?
Well, he was pretty disheartened in a way about the fact that he didn't feel like there were a lot of really strong solutions, sort of measures on where to go. But I was a little more optimistic in that it seemed like it was very well attended, that there's people are very aware of this problem. There are some things that people are doing and being encouraged to do to help combat the issue. I mean, obviously there's and there's major things that need to happen. I mean, I think we need some celebrities to get involved and be sort of front and center and say that this this can't happen.
Right. And when you say that,
and obviously an education to the either the actor starting out or the actor that's thinking about going FICOR or going and doing one of these jobs, what the ramifications are for them and for the company, but mostly it's also sitting down with these production companies and and really trying to work on I think we can move a little bit on what obviously we've worked very hard for the wages that we now get, but I think there can be some wiggle room, because I think people do want to work with union talent.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question about that. but we need to somehow make it viable for more people.
I agree. Back when I started, and this was after the strike, there was a strike in, I forget what year, 2001, 2002, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
they
2000 actually, yeah.
2000, okay. And that's when the actors decided enough is enough and we're going to walk off, and there was no commercials being done for, I don't know how long the strike lasted, but it definitely caused a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So I got in after any of that. So I don't know what it was like before that, but after that, even then, I was going on 5-6 auditions a week.
Right.
Now, 5-6 auditions a month is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm alone.
Right.
It's a fairly, broad issue for us union actors. And I think you're right. I think there has to sort of be a full-scale, multifaceted solution to it. And I think the one thing that the meeting didn't necessarily do for us is give us information about the stuff that we don't already know. They're telling us that one of the big things is to continually talk about it with non-union members, or as they call them, pre-members, and then talk about it with agents and casting directors. But we do that anyway. I mean, we already know we have a problem. We already know that we need solutions.
Right.
I think we all wanted to know what the leadership at SAG-AFTRA is doing. And they may already be doing a million things. They may already have 8 strategies laid out, but they didn't really explain those to us, which was probably what most of us wanted to hear. So I'm hoping that over time, that's what we're going to find out. So it's, right. I mean, it is a problem. And I hope for solutions. I guess I'm a skeptical optimist at heart.
Right.
In that I still want to hope that there's solutions, but they got to start telling us what they are.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the the sucky part of what we wanted to talk about. But the nice part is how you and I first started working together.
Yeah.
And I figured that was that's a nice way to kind of cleanse the palate there. So
although if I may, my friend, you asked a good question. Like, okay, so how has the business changed? But along the lines of good cleansing the palate and moving into brighter things. But I mean, there's so many more. Obviously, more outlets for production. Netflix and all these different companies that are producing new content. I mean, there's that. That's really exciting. And the kind of work that's happening in New York, TV and film wise, is so much more than when I got here and back in the late 90s. I mean, we had like the Cosby Show and Law and Order, and I think Spin City.
Well, don't forget New York Undercover.
New York Undercover. Oh my friends, the old gang at New York Undercover.
Yeah. But you're right. I do think that's a huge positive, and I think I'm somebody who's a good example of benefiting from the more opportunity, because it took me, I don't know how, like 8 years in the business before I appeared on TV.
Right.
So
right.
I was very grateful to start seeing more opportunities come up. So it is not all gloom and doom, for sure.
And people do watch web series and things like that. So I think the ability for a young performer to have their work get seen is probably a lot stronger than it was when we were. I think the bigger challenge, and I always say, like, I was either born 10 years too early, 10 years too late. But, if I had the wherewithal to put YouTube videos up when I was like 20 and my creative powers were at their greatest, man, I just wish I could have experienced that. Yeah. But I guess on the flip side, it's so hard to cut through all the noise now. Right. So, I mean, it's always going to be, water finds its highest, whatever it's called. Yeah. Water finds its level. I don't know the metaphor, but the idea is that no matter what the situation is, the hard part is always going to be where the hard part is. So, it is a better world for creators to have outlets for their stuff, and hopefully we're able to monetize or at least cash in, do what your friend did, Mr. Roulette. And find a career just based on the hard work you put into the stuff you do now. So that's promising. That's definitely a positive. So I'm glad you brought that up. Right. All right, let's talk about when you and I first worked together. A little picture called Filmic Achievement. At what stage of the game did you get involved? Well, I went to the same college that the director went to, and his wife, the producer. They went to Holy Cross. Okay. Yep. I didn't know Kevin, the director at Holy Cross. Kevin Kerwin, by the way. Yep. but I met him through a mutual friend who also went to Holy Cross, Claire Rossile, who was actually on the board of Rude Mechanicals. And so she encouraged Kevin to come see a Rude Mechanical play, or, she dragged him somewhere to see us. And so he was at Columbia Film School at the time. And then we all went out for drinks after, had a grand old time. And then I would say, not too long after that, he got in touch about Filmic Achievement, that he had this idea for this movie, and there was not any script, and there wasn't going to be any script. But he had insane idea, but he had a very strong idea about who the characters would be in the film. And so, as you may remember, he wrote a very detailed history of each character.
I may have seen that, but I don't know if did I ever see that? Wow.
It would.
I'm trying. It's now going back to 2002 or something like that when I auditioned for it, and I just had a vague idea of the character they were going for, and I just went with it. Right. And he was brilliant at saying, okay, today this is what I need. I need bup. Right. And he was so trusting of us that he would just let us go.
Yeah.
And so. Okay, so you had that detailed history of things, and you kind of had the idea of the history of the characters.
Yeah.
And you got involved in the casting, as you mentioned.
Right.
So how did you get involved that way?
Andrew Benader, who was also in the film, was a Rude Mechanical as well. So he and I were in a show. So he kind of knew what he wanted to do with us, but then he had to cast the rest of the film. And so we basically, had a set up auditions for, reached out to our ACT network, and Claire Winters, she's an ACT, Finnerty Steve, she was ACT.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah. And then, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. But there were a couple other ACT people in it.
I'm trying to, for me, it was like such a weird experience because I came into it, and now this was pure improv, right? I mean, just like at its most pure, right? We're given a scenario, and we had to get from point A to point B to point C to point D, and we were so immersed in what we were doing. Now, you played a character named Buck FELTY, which I think is one of the great all-time funny names,
absolutely,
just in and of itself.
Yeah, totally.
And you were responsible for leading us through entire curriculum of classes that they would just film, which was amazing.
Yeah,
and you had to be in character essentially the whole time.
Right.
So for me, I was trying to piece together who was who character-wise and experience that through my character's eyes. But then as an actor, trying to figure out who was who and how everybody was connected and stuff like that. And I was relatively new to the business. So it was a huge learning experience for me. It was fascinating.
Yeah, totally. I remember. Now, how did you get involved with that?
I responded to a thing, I think in Playbill, in their casting section, and I just submitted myself, and I went to Columbia, and I remember, I want to say you were in the room, but I also think Benader was in the room.
Okay. Yeah, I was not at your audition.
Okay, it was Benader. Okay, it was Benader.
Yeah.
And it just clicked. It was just, we just, I think
you were hilarious.
Well, thanks. I always describe that as the only way I figured I could play that is just me after eating an insanely heavy meal. And just I use that as the motivation for being incredibly stupid. All the blood was rushed to my stomach and I had nothing, I had no brain left.
Love that.
I always tell the story about how you would talk to us, and in the mid-sentence you would unbuckle your belt and then tuck your shirt in. Where did that come from?
I don't know, Dave.
Started.
It was just kind of came with the moment. Yeah.
There's so much good work that went into it.
It was a lot of fun working on, and Kevin is actually color correcting it now, and he sold it initially. He sold the film, and but then he wasn't happy with kind of what they were doing with it
because they didn't do anything.
They didn't really do much.
Yeah.
So he bought it back, and then we like you said, it was 2002. So obviously technology's improved a lot.
Right,
and
right.
So he's basically painstakingly every frame he's kind of doing this color correction and all this sort of painstaking work to kind of make it a little, just.
Yeah, I mean, I had Elaine Marcos on last week, and she was one of the students along with me, and I think at the time I guessed it was about 60 hours of footage. Was that about right?
Well, they had 2 cameras going, too.
Yeah, yes.
And so there was just a ton of stuff to sift through.
Yeah, is he going through the final cut and color correcting, or is he going to re-edit?
I think he's going to use the final cut.
Okay.
So I don't think he's going to re-edit. But I remember the editor, and that's I think an interesting lesson too. Is like if you're going to shoot something and it's going to be an improv thing. Line up a good editor.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Aaron Labarsky, I think was.
I think you're right, yeah. He worked on something else that was very high level, but I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember, but yeah, I think if you look him up, he's worked on some really great projects.
Well, Aaron, we appreciate your work.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks, man. That was incredible. I mean, and a lot of the stuff, we couldn't use because people would just start cracking up.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be the 18th time I tell this story probably on this podcast, but when we were in that auditorium, it was at a sound studio in the West Village, and we were being filmed constantly, and they said, okay, we're not going to stop the camera, so if you laugh, you have to hide. And you did your trick with the belt, and I leaned over to stop myself from laughing. And I have this weird thing when I laugh really, really hard, and it's like a vasovagal thing. I start to pass out, so I literally passed out.
Oh my god!
I don't know if they caught it on camera, but I literally was like, for half a second, I was blacked out. And it was one of the funniest things I ever experienced in my life. It was such a great thing. Yeah.
Oh, that is
and
funny.
in I've suggested before, and if Kevin, if you're listening, here is my free pitch to you. Free of charge, because I want people to see this thing.
Yeah.
Because it was just unbelievably great work.
Yeah, and I was really I know we had so much fun doing it, and we were cracking each other up, and I thought maybe this will be okay,
Yeah.
But I was really pleased with the end result, and obviously it did very well at the festivals and this and that.
Yeah,
but
and it just went nowhere.
And
it
just couldn't find an audience because no stars in it, etc.
And I think the thing that I would suggest to Kevin is finding a way to repackage that as a series and sell it to Netflix. Because there's so much footage that's still viable. And you can tell that story over time, and I think it'd be a huge hit.
Yeah.
And you can even do it, package it as an example of like the early days of digital filmmaking. Because there was older equipment, there was older stuff being used, and obviously we've been at it for a long, long time.
Right.
So you can do where are they now kind of episode, like after the fact.
Yeah.
But that's my suggestion to you, Kevin. Do that and show the people all the amazing work. I'm not even just championing myself here. I think the work that you did, the work that Leonard Robinson did.
Oh my gosh, that's right. He was hilarious.
Unbelievable.
Just a hoot. Yeah, totally.
And so committed.
Well, I thought that was really the joy of it too. It was how many, whoever was Kelly Rush, I can't remember the girl's name, but like we had probably like
Kelly Rush. Which one was Kelly Rush?
She was the one. She actually won. Spoiler.
Oh yeah, don't. Jane Brookshire.
Jane Brookshire.
Yeah,
Janie
of course.
Brookshire. She was hilarious.
Yeah.
But all like so many people that show up in that movie just have their moment and just knock it out of the park and are hilarious.
It's just so good. It's just so good.
Well, the good news is Kevin is still, really connected to it and wants it to have the audience that, it really does deserve. And hopefully the timing and like you said, I like your idea with the packaging. That could be interesting. At one
production
time,
cost is just about zero.
Well, I'll tell you, when we were, oh my gosh, I'm trying to, the company that we were shooting at, you mentioned we were working in this theater in the West Village.
Yes, yeah. I forgot what it was called.
It's a production company.
Oh, okay.
And they were one of the guys who got us the space there, a favor. I knew him a little bit. He was actually good friends with Andrew. He thought this could have been a good series for IFC.
Oh, wow.
And we had conversations about that, but Kate and Kevin were getting ready to go to Cleveland.
Right,
they had this whole kind of plan, and it just and he didn't really sort of push the idea enough. But that's the way it works.
But like you said, there are far more outlets now.
Yeah.
So we could finally be bringing this thing to some public. Yeah,
sounds good.
I'll share with you my favorite thing that happened post the aftermath of Filmic Achievement. And for me, Filmic Achievement was my the Chekhov play, the one you did on Broadway,
Three Sisters.
Three Sisters. That was my Three Sisters. Mm-hmm. Here I was surrounded by brilliant talent who I thought were just amazing, and I was like, okay, this film is going to make me a star.
Yeah,
and it was like, okay, we got to festivals. That's great. Okay, and then nothing.
Right,
and it was huge disappointment that not enough people got to see that because. Right. I mean, I was challenged to do some of the best work I still have yet to, have done since. So I was kind of down about it. And then one day I kept looking for Filmic Achievement. I would just do searches for Filmic Achievement. I found one day there was a video that a girl had taken of her and her boyfriend. She did a hidden camera thing. Mm-hmm. And she gave him a package. And he opened it up, and it was the DVD of Filmic Achievement.
Oh, my God.
And he went nuts. He was so happy because they saw it I think in Boston.
Oh, okay.
And he was like the biggest Filmic Achievement fan.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it was like such a gratifying moment. Yeah.
That's all we need, Davey.
That's it. That's all we need.
All right. If nothing else happens, yep.
We that moment.
His day. Yeah,
we made someone's day. And isn't that what we do as artists?
Indeed. It is. It is.
How do people stay in touch with you? You have web and stuff like that? You have a website?
Do I have a website?
Yeah.
No.
You're on Twitter.
I got to get one of those.
Twitter?
I'm going to get on Twitter.
One of these days.
It's going to happen.
How do people even reach you if they're like, hey, I need to talk to this Kevin? Kevin. Hey, I need to talk to this Matt Lawler guy.
They can... they can go through you, Davey.
So email.
They could email me, Matt Lawler at Hotmail. Yeah, keeping it real.
Yeah.
Hotmail.com.
Yeah. Is your AOL just not working?
No, I'm trying to get that back in the swing. But yeah.
Well, this is fun. Man. I appreciate it.
This is good. Yeah.
The one and only Matt Lawler. Great dude. Funny dude. Just really talented and yet so down to earth. And it's always great time whenever I get a chance to speak with him. And it's always fun to reminisce about Filmic Achievement. It's a minor obsession, I understand, but there are a few things that are worth a minor obsession. And by the way, if you want to see the trailer for Filmic Achievement, it's in the show notes for this episode of BringYourOwnLunch.com. Go check that out so you can see what I've been talking about all this time. And you can actually see the results of what the work that went into it came to be, if that makes any sense. I don't know if it does. But anyway, if you want to keep in touch with Matt, well, as he discussed, not a real social network kind of guy, but you can visit the website for the Mile Square Theater. That's the professional theater he is the Associate Artistic Director of in Hoboken, New Jersey. That's milesquaretheater.org. That's one of those RE theaters as opposed to the ER theaters. You can go check that out. That link will also be in the show notes for this episode on the website. Thanks to Matt for hosting and for a great conversation and for being a cool dude and all that good stuff. I look forward to the next time we get to chat, which I'm sure will be sooner than later. That about does it for another edition of Bring Your Own Lunch. Glad you can join us. Thanks to Banuba. That's the band you're listening to right now. Go to their website, banooba.net, and find out where they will be playing live. Download some of their music. Buy their music. They are awesome, and they are a big part of this show. And don't forget to go to our website, BringYourOwnLunch.com. Find out all the info about the guests on this program, past, present, presumably future. Send me a personal email, dave@BringYourOwnLunch.com. Like us on Facebook.com/BringYourOwnLunch. Follow us on Twitter at BYOL Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Bring Your Own Lunch. And if you have a moment, please go to iTunes or Stitcher. Rate, review, subscribe to this show, and then go tell a friend or two or everybody you've ever known. I don't care if there were somebody you just sort of knew in passing in study hall back in 10th grade. Just go contact them and say, hey, listen to this show because I'd love that. That would be awesome. Stay tuned for Jimmy Jack's Cowpunch Hour, followed by Mansoor and the Fish. And until next week, when I got another great guest lined up, this is Dave. I'll see you next Wednesday. Bug Filthy.